my name is Nonat, and the Pathfinder 2e Remaster is on its way. I'm really excited, but apparently it's coming out in November, even though I thought it was coming out in October, so we've still got a full month to wait, which makes me upset. But Papa Paizo has been dropping little breadcrumbs, little teasers here and there to get you and me excited for the remaster. And today, we're talking about the brand new... It was actually dropped 8 days ago, I'm so sorry. Remaster information for the Ranger class. Not what I was expecting to see at all. In fact, even in the post itself, they talk about how the Ranger is one of those classes that is in such a good place mechanically, it's gonna see some of the least changes in the remaster. But I think they wanted to give us an idea of what least changes actually looks like. So let's take a look. But before that, when it comes to the Ranger, what's one of the first things you think of? Favored terrain. And my favorite terrain is our sponsor for this video, Moonlight Maps. The Kickstarter for their plain terrain project has just launched, and guys, these are so freaking cool. Basically, there are 8 different terrain packs you can pick up, each one coming with 6 unique static cling assets. How does this work? Well, check this out. Basically, you have a bunch of different boards, and each board can have these different assets like bushes and buildings and whatnot stuck right to it and taken off, reassembled into brand new maps whenever you need it. No more saying, oh, imagine there's a bush there. Now you just take the bush and there it is. And these assets are not using any kind of adhesive. They're infinitely reusable because they use static cling. They attach right to the board through, I don't know, magic? And then you peel them right off, you put them back in the booklet they came in, and you reuse them, you reorganize them, and you make your perfect battle map every single time. Coming from someone who might have made one too many hand-drawn maps that look like amorphous blobs, this is something I will absolutely be picking up for my in-person games, which have just recently started up again. I've been really enjoying playing Dungeon Crawl Classics lately, and this terrain is obviously system agnostic. You can use it to create whatever map you want for whatever game you're playing. I can't recommend it enough, and I can't wait to get my hands on some. So if you want to support playing terrain and get your hands on it just like me, click my link down in the description to go check out the Kickstarter. It is live from October 10th through November 9th. It's a great product. I trust Moonlight Maps. They've worked with the channel multiple times over the years. Their contactors have always been phenomenal with me and giving me freedom to do these ads however I want to. They're fantastic. Go support Moonlight Maps. Get your hands on an awesome product. You won't be sorry. Thank you, Moonlight Maps, for sponsoring this video. Let's talk about the Ranger Remaster. So I'm going to do this one a little bit different. Let me know in the comments if you prefer this style versus how I handled the Wizard one. I'm going to be going through this verbatim, every single word read out loud to you, so you don't have to do that hard thing where you look at words and then convert them into thoughts. Reading, I think is what it's called. If you like this, let me know. If you prefer my ad-libbing, sort of just going off the cuff, let me know which one you prefer, because there's going to be a lot more of these, I assume, especially in the next few weeks. So, starting off, the Ranger is a wilderness warrior, a character who's good with weapons, good with animals, good in the wild, and who can sprinkle in just a little bit of magic into their repertoire if they feel like it. This is something I have always respected Paizo for. If they feel like it. Rangers are not inherently magical, they never were in Pathfinder 2e, they got the option for magic in the Advanced Player's Guide, but I've always loved that they are a martial class first with an option for spellcasting. Not throwing shade at D&D, I just don't like that if I'm playing a Ranger, spells are part of my identity. By and large, this is one of the classes that most people consider to be solid and effective, both good at its role thematically and mechanically. While we're not inclined to fix things that aren't broken, the Ranger being a generally solid and effective class pre-remaster didn't mean we didn't have some notable opportunities to go in and spruce a few things up, improving the general progression and experience. Yeah, I think this is what every single class should get out of a remaster. If you're going to go through all of the effort to remake the system, not from the ground up, but make a few changes, you might as well make all the changes that have come up within the last 3 years. 3 years is a long time for a game system to exist. Remember, Pathfinder 1st Edition came out when? 2009. So Pathfinder 1st Edition had 14 years before 2nd Edition. 2nd Edition's already at 3 years in. So you think about, that's about a quarter of its lifespan before you theoretically would see a Pathfinder 3rd Edition. So why not take this first 25% of its average lifespan take those corrections, make those updates, and make them part of the core game for the next 75% of its lifespan. I think that's a great idea. The magical element of the Ranger is often one of its more understated aspects, but it's one people really care about. Yes and no. Again, I like the Ranger being inherently non-magical, but I could see people wanting it to feel more core to the class rather than just something you pick up. Originally, Ranger focus spells called Warden spells were added to the class after the fact in the Advanced Player's Guide, and one of the downsides to this was that since they weren't built into the class originally, the class didn't have mechanisms in place to ensure the Ranger's spellcasting proficiency improved as the character leveled up. In the remaster, we've baked the spellcasting progression directly into the Ranger's core chassis, ensuring that class features like Ranger Expertise and Masterful Hunter naturally progress the Ranger's spellcasting proficiency all the way up to Master. What level do they get that? Wait a minute. Okay, so now the Ranger scales sort of like an off-caster. I think they scale the same way the War Priest does, getting Expert spellcasting proficiency at 9th level and Master at 17th level. So obviously not as good as a full caster, but still cool. And what this means, beyond Rangers being able to use their Warden spells more efficiently, they can now take spellcasting archetypes more efficiently. Now that they have the built-in scaling in their class, they don't need to worry as much about taking every single feat out of a spellcasting archetype that boosts your proficiency. They could just take basic and maybe expert spellcasting benefits and still get them up to master at later levels. We also streamlined the feats that the Ranger uses to accrue their Warden spells and recategorized the spells into easily referenced groups. The first level Initiate Warden feat allows you to choose from any of the initial Warden spells, which are all of the Ranger focus spells that start at first rank. So this is the same as the Divine Initiate for Cleric. You pick any of your domains and get a first level focus spell for it. Now Rangers who take this take any first level Ranger focus spell. I think that's a great way to organize it, rather than making every single spell its own feat, which is what they did in the Advanced Player's Guide. Kind of made it a nightmare to review. Now it's just like, here, this feat lets you pick from these 4 different spells. Go ahead, have fun. You can probably take it multiple times too if you need to. And there are regularly paced feats all the way up to the 10th level Peerless Warden feat that gives you access to the strongest Ranger focus spells, which are focus spells that all start at 5th rank. Perfect. So it sounds like instead of being, 15 separate feats for all the Ranger focus spells, there's 3 feats now, and each feat gives you access to 5 focus spells, give or take. That's awesome. I think that's a much more organized way to do it, and that's something that Pathfinder 2e has always struggled with, is organization in its rulebooks. They're huge for, I won't say for no reason, but they could be smaller, and I think this is a great first step towards that. Along with the general improvements to spellcasting, we also added some new feats to help make certain builds pop and shine a bit more brightly. Precision Rangers, who like combining Warden spells with big shots from crossbows, will likely appreciate the new Warden's Reload feat shown below, which allows them to reload as a free action once per round when casting a Warden spell. That's fantastic. This will allow you to make really good use of your action economy, because the thing that really struggled with a lot of Rangers, especially if they started with like Gravity Weapon, that's an action you have to cast to set up your spell. It's a spell, it lasts a minute, but now you only have 2 actions left on your first turn. Maybe you have to move into position after that. Cool. You take your shot with your crossbow. Guess what? You now have an unloaded crossbow that at the start of your next turn is going to have to be spent reloading. With this, you can at least end your turn with a loaded crossbow. Granted, I didn't realize until just now, this feat is level 16. That seems high. This combines nicely with staple spells like Gravity Weapon to increase your weapon damage, or spells like Ranger's Bramble that damage and immobilize your foes, making them easy targets for you to pick off from a safe distance. Is this too high? I guess it makes their focus spells free, action-wise, as long as it's a 1-action focus spell. The problem here is it's still a focus spell. You only get 3 per combat. Max. You have a max focus pool of 3. So, like, why is this level 16? At most, you're going to get 3 extra actions in combat, which isn't nothing, but I feel like if you use all 3, depending on your crossbow, I suppose, it's like a heavy crossbow has reload 2 actions, so it's better over there, but I feel like this isn't going to get you that many more attacks. Maybe, I guess it allows you to reposition, cast a spell, reload, and fire all on one turn, which isn't to be understated. But level 16, my god. Ranger snares are going to be the one thing not appearing in player core that were originally available to the class. Snares were kind of the least satisfying of the options available to the Ranger and the least used options, so we've pulled those out of the class. They'll be appearing in player core 2 alongside the Snarecrafter archetype with a much needed facelift. Okay, so we have gotten confirmation that some archetypes will be getting facelifts. I think they're very, very required. I'm sad to see that Rangers are losing snares inherently and getting them again later. I guess they're swapping the magic and the snares in the books they come out in, but snares as a whole have always been awkward in PF2. I've never seen someone try to use them. The only time I've ever theory crafted with them is to make the richest character in all of Pathfinder 2e, and that was just sort of a for fun thing. It's hard because snares are considered hazardous, and you can't forcibly move someone into a hazardous terrain unless you like shove them. Like you can't charm someone and tell them to sidestep into a snare. And it wasn't until really high levels you got the ability to move snares, but even then you could not move a snare into an occupied space. So snares have been in a really weird place for all of PF2's life. I'm hoping they get fixed in a way that makes them more efficient, even if it means toning down the damage, toning up the cost, but making them more efficient to be used as an actual reliable weapon. That'd be really neat. There were also a few places where we had feats that many people saw as being taxes that you had to pay to accomplish a specific flavor. Yeah, these are definitely rarer in PF2 than they were in PF1, but they do still exist. For example, the Crossbow Ace feat that originally appeared in the Pathfinder core rulebook was written under the assumption that all crossbows were simple weapons, and so it provided a damage bonus that essentially converted these simple weapons into martial weapons whenever you took certain actions like hunting prey or reloading. This ended up with a couple of issues. On one hand, the damage bonus was big enough that the feat felt like a must-have. Yeah, this gave you a flat +2 damage bonus on all attack rolls with crossbows, I believe. Yeah, +2 to damage rolls and increase the damage die size. That is so much. Like on average, that's about 2.5 extra damage on all attack rolls, maybe a little bit less, but over the course of a campaign, that's a lot of extra damage that you just can't turn down. On the other hand, the feat was actively fighting with the Ranger's play loop. If you were tracking your prey before combat began, which you can do as long as you find tracks of something, and you had your crossbow in hand, loaded and ready, you didn't have any way to get your damage bonus. Yeah, because remember, you only get the crossbow ace damage bonus after hunting prey or loading a crossbow. So if those were already met as conditions, you don't get that bonus on turn 1. It was kind of awkward. Playing the character the way that everything in the game was telling you to play your character was leading to situations where you couldn't use the abilities you were supposed to be using in the situations you were supposed to be using them in. I really like that sentence. I think it's very well worded and kind of confusing in the best way. To address these issues, we added a martial crossbow, the Arbalest, so that you could expect a more reasonable damage output without needing to pay a feat tax. Looks like the Arbalest is dealing 1d10 piercing plus Backstabber, which that's pretty cool, though again, really hard to do. Backstabber only adds bonus damage if the target is off guard, and making a target off guard against a ranged attack is not easy. While we have the patient open on crossbows, we also adjusted them to make them their own weapon group. They are no longer just bows. There are now bows and crossbows, which are different things. That probably should have been like that since the beginning. With a damage-oriented critical specialization that deals 1d8 persistent bleed damage plus additional bleed damage equal to the weapon's item bonus on attack rolls. Okay, so this sort of gives them a weird deadly trait inherently. It just happens to be bleed damage, which is at the end of their turn. And then yeah, it doesn't scale that well. It's always going to be 1d8 and then plus 1, 2, or 3 based on your weapon potency rune. That's fine. If you prefer the bow critical specialization they had before, you can add that back onto your crossbow with the Grievous rune, which makes it like getting a critical hit. Yeah, pin them, bleed damage, and pull the bolt free. Okay, I can't tell if this is too strong or not, because most crit specializations don't do damage on purpose, because critical hits already do enough damage on their own, but they might be worried that changing crossbow ace is making crossbows inert and not making them strong enough, so by giving them a critical specialization that just directly deals damage, granted it's only bleed damage, that might keep them in relevancy. My only worry is that this is going to make crossbows insane on fighters. Then again, short bows and long bows already do have deadly built into them, and with composite they can add the strength mod, so I think this might be fine. You know, making crossbows do more on a critical hit compared to, not compared to a bow, but compared to the bow's critical specialization effect, I think it's fine. I like that Pathfinder 2e is leaning into ranged weapons being critical machines. They are made to score crits. They only see their full potential on crits, whether it be deadly, fatal, or now the crossbow crit specialization. I think it's cool. With the basic damage outlay on crossbows addressed via the core weapon system, we were able to make reloading more fun and tactical with the feat space that was opened up. In addition to options like Warden's reload feat I mentioned earlier, we've also reworked crossbow ace and similar options to function more like the gunslinger's various reload abilities, giving you additional things you can do to reinforce your playstyle with reload weapons, while improving your ability to achieve the kind of cinematic, tactical maneuvering the class was always aiming to provide. This is perfect. They are doing what me and countless others of you have been saying for the last 3 years, and is what Pathfinder 2e's core identity was built on. A feat should not give you more damage. That's what a feat should never do that. Damage should come from upgrading your weapon, upgrading your core class, not from just taking a feat. A feat should always be a new option available to you, or an augment that makes a skill more versatile, not just stronger. And changing crossbow ace to be able to allow you to create a diversion or take cover when you reload is phenomenal, because that will allow you to actually throw off guard onto a target, and if you're using the new arbalest, you can get that backstabber bonus. If you can create a diversion, distracting them, making yourself hidden, taking the shot, boom! You've got their off guard, their AC's lower, you've got a damage bonus from backstabber. Fantastic. That's everything I've got for you on the Ranger. Thanks for tuning in. Yeah. Thank you, Michael Sayer. Thank you. That was Michael Sayer, right? So yeah. There is the Ranger Remaster. Not a whole lot coming in, but still something. And I think this is the minimum amount of change we're going to see on a class, except for maybe the fighter, because who knows, maybe they won't even touch the fighter. But I want to know what you think in the comments below. Do you like these changes? Do you dislike them? What about the crossbow changes being made their own weapon group? That means fighters are going to need to hyper-specialize. If they pick bow for their fighter weapon mastery, they can't use bows and crossbows. It's one or the other. That's a cool choice they're going to have to make. So I want to hear from you and your thoughts. I also want to thank Moonlight Maps for sponsoring this video with their plain terrain. Once again, click the link in the description. Go support their Kickstarter. I'm going to go give my voice a rest because I'm still not over this dang sore throat. It's getting really, really raw. So that's all from me. I hope you all have a wonderful rest of your day. And until next time, know that once. Oh God, voice is going gravelly. Goodbye.